What's up, Miniatures Paintbrush Legion? This is Rob, your host, and today we're going to talk about painting up the XV8 Crisis Battlesuit. Let's go down to the table town. Alrighty, so we are back. Some airbrush flow improver and some model color black. I have a wet palette there. It is a Masterson's wet palette. I picked it up for about 13 bucks. And one thing about those Masterson wet palettes, they're going to come with paper. You want to throw that paper away and you're going to get some parchment paper. I like to use the Reynolds lined graph paper to be able to do that. Now, I do use Airbrush Flow Improver. I have it right here, Airbrush Flow Improver, but you can use any flow improver for it. Now, the thing is that black, in my experience, kind of gets clumpy after a while, so you gotta want some flow improver in there just to keep it flowing off the brush and you know what the product says it should do, right? Not that you should do it directly. I always have some flow improver in my wet palette, so this way it absorbs some of the water in there as well, and obviously the paint in which I mix it into. And what I do usually is I'm going to dip my brush into the flow improver and then dip it into the drops of paint that I put onto the wet palette. And then I'll mix that on the wet palette itself as it soaks in some water, and then I apply it onto my figure. Now this dilutes it just enough that I get that perfect kind of balance of coverage, and I don't see any kind of lines. It's kind of like levels out, so you don't see any brush strokes on there. Really do like that combination. And now model color black. I like to use a Stynylrez black primer and model color black. Now the black primer is a little blue black, so if you want blue black, that's the way to go. It's self-leveling, brushes on really well, and I have no complaints over Stynylrez primer. In fact, that's my go-to primer for all my minis. Now, if you want a flat matte black, you'll be hard pressed to go wrong than using Vallejo model color black. I mean, to me, it just works so well. It's so forgiving, but it does need a little bit of flow improver because after a while, it does thicken up just a tad bit. And I don't know the chemistry composition of that and why it would do that, but that's pretty much what it just does. So what I'm doing here to paint up this XV8, and you're going to notice that I have 3 other XV8s in the background. And what I like to do is I like to paint a mini at least once to gain experience from it. So this way, when I paint it the second time, I can do a video upon it, and then I kind of know what I'm talking about. And you see, that's the big issue right there. I'm not going to do something in Explorer unless it's playing with paint and you can see me explore paint. But if I'm not going to really do a tutorial on something I'm not 100% certain that I can teach. So in order to do that, I have to build at least a unit of it. So this way I know for a fact that I am able to do it. That's the big thing. So here I am painting up model color black onto the legs. And you're going to notice a sub-assembly in the background as well. I do build things in sub-assembly, and the reason why I enjoy it, and I enjoy it because I kind of put stuff together as I paint it, and I think that's kind of neat because it really does give me a sense of accomplishment. Even if I don't paint much throughout the day, even if I have just an hour a day to paint, I'm just going to do that much and complete that much and then build another piece onto it. And I feel like that sense of accomplishment, like I've done something. And that's what keeps me coming back to the table. Speaking about coming back to the table, I had a hard time coming back to the towel. I have chosen for my Get Her Done challenge, my new army for the new year, being the Tau. And the Tau is my absolute largest army that I own. I had so many units of painting them. I love the aesthetic. I absolutely adore the aesthetic of the Tau. And I love that anime is part of 40K. That is amazing, right? So I just fell in love with the models, so I bought the models. But I was always intimidated about painting stark white. Like, for me, white never came out as perfectly smooth as I wanted it to. I was never very confident in white. And I knew that if I was going to paint this army, it would have to be in something that intimidates me. I always preach to paint bravely, like my buddy Matt DiPietro always says, to paint bravely, because nothing ventured is nothing gained. You can't get better at something you are not practicing. So I always say practice does not make perfect, but practice makes permanent. And what that means is, like, your brush control. If you keep practicing your brush control, it becomes a permanent part of your toolbox for painting. If you practice NMN, then that, after a while, once you feel like you're comfortable with it, becomes part of your toolbox. And you see, you keep on adding tools to that toolbox. So this way, when you come up to scenarios, you can attack it with confidence because you've been there and done that, wrote the book, or at least in my case, done the tutorial video. So that's the way I approach this one. So I learned a couple of things so far while doing this towel. One is to paint a really, really great white. And I mean a stark white. If you want to create shadows with this white, then it's quite easy for you to get some Nun oil. Bear with me, Nun oil, and put it through an airbrush, and then reverse zenithal highlight it. So this way the underneath parts can get a little dirty, so to speak. It has that nice gradient to it as well. Be very careful when you apply it. Apply when you're doing washes with an airbrush. Apply it in small coats, like just a mist, let that dry. Another mist, let that dry until you feel comfortable, and it will start turning slowly and gradually. And the thing I like about it turning at that pace is because you get to control just when you think it's enough shading. Okay, worst case scenario, you can always paint it white and start over. That's the beauty of painting in sub-assemblies as well, is that you're not really ruining the entire model if you make a mistake. You're just ruining a part of it. Now, when I say sub-assemblies, I'm not taking all the pieces and painting them individually. I do build, to an extent, some of the model. As you see, the legs are done, the torso is done here, the feet are done as well. I put them all together. But some parts I do not put together. The arm is partially put together, but the shoulder pads are not, because I want to get the underside of the shoulder pads. Sometimes when you position the shoulder pads on something, they creep up and they reveal the underneath part of it. Well, I want the underneath part of it, if it's showing, to be absolutely painted. In fact, I don't know, I'm a little crazy like that. As long as I know I'm going to paint it, right? Even if it doesn't show, I'll take that chance. And all it takes is just putting it on another peg on this cork. And by the way, I'm using nails, and I'm putting them into the cork, and then I'm putting poster tack on the ends of those nails in order to stick the parts on. So it's not the most secure thing in the universe, but it does well enough for such light pieces. And as long as you're not banging it around and throwing it around, you'll be just fine. If you have an area where you can save your models and put your pieces where they're safe and they will not get damaged, then this is the ideal method, in my opinion, of painting your miniatures. And I like that GW allows you to do that. I like a kit. When I buy a kit, and I'm talking about kit because I'm a modeler, right? So when I buy a kit, whether it's a car, whether it's a military vehicle, no matter the scale, if it's little army men from Games Workshop, I want the fit and finish to be spot on. That's what I'm paying for, the quality of the build. This is my downtime, this is my hobby, this is how I unwind, and I want to make sure that the quality of the build is there so I can go and not be frustrated. This is one of my biggest pet peeves with Forge World for advanced modelers. You're paying extra money for less quality, which frustrates me. A couple of things frustrate me right now. The pricing model for GW models. Commanders and solo units cost an absorbent amount of money, when for the same amount of plastic you can get a unit of, let's say, Pathfinders for less money than you would for one unit for a commander. And the reason why is their pricing structure. They price it around how valuable it is on the gaming table. And the only problem I have with that is that they write the rules, so they could literally charge whatever they want for their commanders, because if it becomes more valuable because they wrote it in the rules that way, then we have to take up the difference. Not only that, there has been a price hike for GW stuff, and I love their quality, but the prices keep on ascending. And one thing that happens there is that it becomes out of reach for younger players. It would be very hard for a younger player to amass an army, let's say, if they simply can't afford it at thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, I get it. There are some kids that buy these video games and they pay an absorbent amount of money for those video games. And this hobby is more, but I say it's more because with video games, you don't have much to show for it afterwards. But with this, you actually say, hey, look, I built this. I have an entire army. Like, here it is in the physical. So I do think there's more to it, but you got to keep in mind that after you spend your thousands on your minis, then you have to spend an absorbent amount of money for the paint and the brushes, and then you have to invest the time in to paint and model these things. And I know for me, I painted several models and I was not happy with it for a very long time until I was. But then again, when I started painting, it was 90s. It was the 90s, and back then we didn't have this thing called YouTube where you can actually, and Patreon, where you had these amazing artists show you step by step on what to do. I mean, one of my first videos that I watched was Schnauzer Face Minis, and I loved Painting Buddha, which was amazing as well. And that just really opened my eyes to a lot of techniques. I used to sit there upstairs, not in my workshop, just watching a video and then saying, look at these steps that this person took, and I'm going to replicate those steps. On the screen itself, we are still painting black. I'm showing all the black pieces I'm painting. I wish I can get in the camera even better, but I'll get there. When you paint these minis and sub-assemblies, when you paint the minis in general, you do have to turn them in odd angles, and sometimes it's not camera friendly. I do apologize for that. But there it is. There it is. So I'm painting these vents in the back as well, and I'm leaning my hand in for brush control. So yeah, let's get back to the pricing model. If GW wants to charge whatever they want for a commander or something because they think it's valuable and it's the new hotness, they can do so. The thing about that is that it doesn't cost them that much to make the model. And that's why, right there, is this, I believe, the main reason that people are getting upset and they're buying 3D printers and they're making proxies. They're making proxies. Why? Because it's cheaper to make the proxies. It really is. It really is. Although I don't know if the quality is there, and sub-assembly is a little shaky when you're 3D printing. So I'm happy with GW products as is. I don't play in tournaments, and I rarely play at all 40K. My wife plays wargaming, and we kind of like Reign in Hell. Reign in Hell is a game, and if you noticed on this channel, I've had quite a bit of Reign in Hell content. And the reason why is because one, my friend Vince Venturella and also a friend Adam Loper created a game, and I was like, I'm all on it. Yeah, I want to play this game. I want to support what they do. I think they're amazing people. So I wanted to play the game, and my wife agreed to play with it after people have let me down when playing that game, and consistency wasn't a thing. So my wife stepped up, doesn't play war games, but learned how to play this one just for me because it was a simple set. Can I convince her to play 40K? I don't think I can. I think 40K can be crunchy. My friend Ian says it's crunchy where it doesn't need to be and not crunchy enough in places that it needs to. So, I mean, I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. So, amazing dude, shameless soul. I try to say that all together. Amazing dude, shameless soul. Anyway, yeah, very insightful indeed. So, yeah, 40K is going to be interesting. I think that I'm going to play a version of 40K where I alternate activations. I'll just make my homebrew rules that I'm not going to play in a tournament or anything like that, and I'll enjoy the game. Everything else would stay the same. The only thing is, I think maybe I can use Rain and Hell kind of activation for 40K. I think that would make it interesting. I think that would make it more accessible. And since I'm building a Tau army, when the Tau Codex comes out, I think I'm going to pick that up. So this way I can play the Tau, my Tau versus my Space Wolves in a various scenario. Now, granted, I would be playing solo games, and I don't know how you feel about that. And I'm going to homebrew the rules so this way activation's a little more decent and attainable. So it's definitely not for league play, homebrew play, and I think it would be a lot of fun. Let me know down in the comments if you would be up for something like that, because if I'm going to do something like that, it's going to take an enormous amount of effort and time to put together. So let me know if that would be worth the effort and time. And me being a teacher where I'm lesson planning constantly and grading kids' works, it's just, I can't waste any time. Now, time for Evil Sun Scarlet, speaking of time, and I'm going to make that an accent color now that I'm done with the model colored black all over the unit. So having a limited color palette is super Mephiston red as well. Having a limited color palette is definitely a joy when you're painting a large project. Because if you have things that are too complex, it's kind of hard to drill through a whole bunch of units, to be able to do it. And when I was looking down the barrel of three Battle Force boxes and one Armageddon box, including a whole bunch of other minis and terrain when it came to the Tau. In fact, in the beginning of this video, you can see on my board all the Tau stuff that I have already completed. I mean, I have some of those units up there. This is it for this box, and that is the Rapid Insertion Cadre. That's what this is. So this is like the last unit for that box right there. Pretty much a lot of fun to paint, and there's a lot to do with this box set, and it was a lot of fun to do. So yeah, so there's Ghost Keel in there and other stuff as well. That's going to be on the channel. I already have them finished. I have the tutorials, and what I'm doing as far as content wise, if you are joining in just for my Tau content, then thank you for your patience. But I was burning out. When it came to Tau. I needed to do something else, and Rain and Hell is definitely a good reprieve. So I play that game now with my wife, and I do Tau content that I already have pre-recorded. I did these over the summer just because I knew that the school year was coming, and I knew that I would be so involved in lesson planning that I wouldn't really have too much time to paint. So having some backup videos was definitely essential for me, and I have a few that I'll be able to post up in between the Rain and Hell content. And the reason why it takes so long for me to post the Rain and Hell content, I've been doing really good for so far, but they are battle reports, and editing them takes some time, although I am pretty good with editing and filming them and finding the time for my wife and I to be able to film the entire game is interesting. Now it's if we don't film, it's we're done in about a half an hour to play a game. Like half an hour to 45 minutes we can play a game, but while filming it takes 4 hours, 5 hours, 4, well, 4 hours. It takes about 3 hours, 4 hours to be able to film that, because we have to consider past the camera back and forth and make sure the audio is right, make sure the lighting is right, make sure you get all the rolls, and going back and forth like that. It just takes time. And so what we're in between games right now, and we didn't have time to record, so I drew it back onto my Tau content, so this way I keep on having that content for you guys. So thank you so much, all my Tau viewers. I appreciate you. I thank you for joining me. There will be more Tau content, there will be, but there's also Rain in Hell. So yeah, having and tackling such a large project has taken so much of a toll on me that I was burning out of Tau. I was just like, I'm done. It's too much, and I don't want to quit all entirely, so I just knew I needed to take a break. And playing Rain in Hell has been a great reprieve for me. I haven't painted as much. I did do a model for my wife for her Cabal, and that was fun. I do have certain amount of Reaper miniatures for the game Rain in Hell as well. If my wife would like to, play some higher level demons, I'm gonna have some higher level demons pre-painted that she could just select from, and it'd be kind of cool. And that's what we're gonna work on here on the Miniatures Paintbrush Legion. So yeah, I think that's a lot of fun. So yeah, having a break from the Tau and having a second project is important, because if you don't want to burn out, then you'll have that second project that you can turn to that just gives you a break from painting the same thing. Like I painted white so much, I was like, ugh, I'm done. So yeah, taking a break is awesome. All right, Mechanica Standard Gray now for the backpack. Keeping that limited color palette essential for me not to burn out as quickly, and to keep going. So yeah, I have a lot of different Tau content. I do have freehand. I did a second devilfish, and I already did a video on painting a devilfish. So I'm not going to do a whole another video on painting a devilfish, but I will tell you, from concept sketch all the way down to actually painted on the miniature, I am going to show you exactly how I put together the sketch, and how I put together freehand, and how the process in which I do freehand, which is important, because when you lay it out with a plan, it helps you. If you have a plan, you plan to succeed. If you don't have a plan, then you plan to fail. That's the way it is, right? So if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. All right, so, and I don't want to plan to fail ever. I mean, I tell my students to work hard, so I'm going to work hard too. I lead by example. I always do. All right, so Mechanica Standard Gray. Now I do this for these models only, this unit only. I'm not going to do it for all my units, but I do like to add individuality within my units. I paint the same units over and over again, but they have to be different. They have to be in some way different, but still cohesive enough to know that they're part of an army. And that's my thing. That is my jam. If I'm going to paint a second unit or a third unit of something, then it sincerely needs to be different. Every model is going to be a special little flower flake that I can that I can show off and say, yeah, you know, I didn't paint exactly the same thing. It could have been the same model, but there's little variations. And having this Mechanica Standard Gray on the sides is enough for me for a variation. Now remember to thin Mechanica Standard Gray. You don't want to put too thick of a coat. You have the 2 thin coats, but I have, you know, more like 4 thin coats for me to be able to do Mechanica Standard Gray and it look airbrushed. Speaking of airbrush, you don't see any airbrush being used in this video, and that's the reason. That's a reason because I didn't want to use, and I don't have to use airbrush when painting the Tau. This is great. You don't have to use airbrush to do all this stuff. If you want to prime this in rattle can white, you can. Just realize that with an airbrush, you do have the ability to control how much flow comes out and how much paint comes out, which is essential for not clogging up any details. So if you're going to do rattle can, just do it in passes, do sweeping motions, and do not overdo it. But once you do that, you can do everything I'm doing right here. The only other difference here is I'm using a stick pen. I'm using a stick pen with oil washes. Now this is Winton oil, and that's from Winsor & Newton. This is ivory black, and I use that with a little bit of mineral spirits that I mix together and put in a container. That's a serving container that you can see like ketchups and stuff like that in, but I buy them on a big box store at my local Sam's Club, and I bought a whole box of them, and I just like poster tacked it to a very large base, and just to stabilize it, because that stuff gets everywhere if you allow it to. But look at how well it just seeps into things, and I love that. It just does the work on the black lining for you, and it is awesome. And the thing about oil washes is it takes a long time to dry, so literally you can go back with some mineral spirits. I'd wait like an hour later and come back with some mineral spirits and just clean up any edges or overages that I have there. I do apologize for how blurry it is. I do paint as close to the camera as possible, but it has a very limited range. And when I look at it and says, "Hey, it looks clear," and then I look at the mini, and then I'm trying to paint, and it gets blurry. I don't know. It's so hard for me to keep track of. I think that's everybody. I'm possibly, if I need a camera without depth of field, that would be amazing. I know it's cheap because you want to add depth of field, and then adds, you know, in the more expensive cameras that adds more. So I think cheaper is better. I might get into a cheaper camera. I'm gonna have to talk to B&H Photo and Video. Not that they sponsor me, although if they want to, they're more than welcome. But yeah, no, B&H seems to be really, really good. I lived in New York, and you just go to B&H whenever you need any kind of photo stuff. You get the best prices, you get the best everything, you get the best warranty, and you get very knowledgeable staff. So if you ask them a question, if they don't know it, they'll find out for you, period. You know, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. The buck stops right there. Plus, they have this system where they put your item on trays and little rolly carts that roll throughout the entire top of the building, so you don't actually carry stuff to the counter. It just appears there like magic. If you're in New York, you need to go to B&H. If you're a photo geek like me, a video geek like me, you need to yeah, it's super cool. It's super cool and super busy. Just don't go there on Saturday because they're Jewish, so they're not going to be open on Saturdays. So there's that. All right, going back with the model color black just to do the legs. If you look at that right there, it looks like it has chicken legs because it does. Like it needs the thighs. It needs not to skip leg day, you know? That's just the way it is. I'm gonna paint up the thighs right there. Very, very, very simple color palette with the towel, which makes it easier to paint. Can I spend more on each model, more time on each model? Of course I can. You can spend more time on any model that you paint. More and more and more and more, and it never ends just how much time that you can spend on a model until you have, you know, a Golden Demon winner, Slayer Sword winning model. Yeah, sure, but you'd only paint that one. And my goal is to paint an entire army, and not just any army. I mean an obsessive amount of points. I don't even know how many points, but a lot of points. A whole bunch of points. Points upon points upon points. So I'm trying not to burn out here, even though I don't know. People say it was inevitable. They told me from the beginning that it was like, oh yeah, you get 20% done and you'll burn out. I'm like, no, it's been more than that. Now back to Mechanicus standard grade to do the thigh right there. Go in a couple of different coats, and I changed it up. You can do any level over there with Mechanicus standard gray if you want, or you can just leave it completely white if you want to. It adds some variation to your models. I encourage you to do that. Make each one of your models somewhat little bit different, so this way it doesn't feel like you're painting the same thing over and over and over and over again. You don't get bored. I get bored when I paint. I get bored of painting the same thing. That's why I never like to paint the same thing over and over again. It has to be different. It has to be unique. It has to be its own special little flower, or if not, I lose interest very fast. Anybody out there lose interest in a model or a build after a little while? Well, of course, there's the new hotness syndrome. When the new hotness comes out, you got to have it, and then it's like, well, the old model doesn't get painted, and you change your mind. So a lot of people have ADD, hobby ADD, but I have a hobby OCD. I need to paint everything, and I got to make sure that I don't get bored. So even if I have the new hotness right behind me, I'm not going to paint it. I still have Ragnar Blackmane, and I bought Prophecy of the Wolf when it came out. And Ragnar Blackmane is the leader for my Space Wolves. And I haven't even painted him yet. And I'm waiting for him for years. And I'm a patient man, so I'm going to wait for him for a couple more years before I paint them. Or the way this is going, this is the new army for the new year. I don't know if I'm going to have a new army for next year. And the reason why is because this towel is going to take me into next year. So that means I can get back to my Space Wolves. Ooh. Time for dark Prussian blue. I'm going to mix that in with some Temple Guard blue for the lighter blue. You can use any dark blue and a light blue. I use Pro Acryl white, titanium white as well. And I'm going to do some lenses. Now, I did videos on lenses before. You can see the detailed process of that. I believe I do wet blending as well as this method right here. But this is the method I use for my towel because it's so simple and easy. So starting off with a dark Prussian blue or just a dark blue. Then I'm going to hit it up with a lighter blue on the bottom edges, the bottom right edges. And then on the bottom, on the top upper edge, I hit it with white. And then I go underneath and try to do a rim of white on the edge of the blue edge. So this way it's like layered. This is the layered effect that I do. And it comes out really well. You see how I do it right there on this little itty bitty dots. It's really important that you use a good brush here. I am using my Raphael 80 numbers. I don't know. There are numbers at the end of that. It's that or Winsor and Newton Series 7. Those are the two brushes that I really like to use. And Series 7 rounds, I like that as well. And I use the number 1. I like a bigger brush because it has a bigger belly and it holds more paint. And when it holds more paint, I don't have to keep dipping it into the wet palette. I could just keep painting, which is exactly what I want to do when I'm painting for a session and I don't have a lot of time. I have to say, it's a joy to go back to the towel for a little bit. Even though this is an intermission for Rain in Hell content, there will be more Rain in Hell content. I am having a ball playing a game with my wife and sharing my passion with her and her enjoying it, even though this is not her thing. You know, it's not her thing. But yeah, there it is. Those are the lenses, little boops, little dots. It kind of looks cool. And on the tabletop, it looks absolutely stunning. Temple Guard blue again, and some more Pro Acryl. I'm going to just do some accents onto the black to break up the black just a little bit. But this time I'm going to use some ink, and I'm just going to do some edge highlighting. Now the ink itself adds to the viscosity of the paint. That means how it rolls off. Plus I'm using some flow improver as well, so there's a lot of flowing going on here, and you just gotta be careful to use the side of the brush, not the tip of the brush, and you want to wick that off just a little bit, so this way your lines won't be as thick. But the good thing about doing edge highlighting on black is that even if you mess up, you just paint black over it. It's very easy to erase things with black. It's just so easy. It's harder to erase things with white, so just be careful with that. But edge highlighting is something that I've done here more than any other place in this army, more than any other army that I've ever painted. Although edge highlighting is becoming more and more of a thing for me, it really does make a miniature pop. So I include that more and more often. But yeah, I wanted to get this army complete and done. I don't believe any of these pieces are going into any kind of competition. So I just wanted to have some fun and speed paint some stuff. And that's exactly where I'm at with this right here. Painting up and having some fun. That's all it's about. So edge highlighting takes a bit of control, and if you want to learn how to edge highlight, I highly recommend you do it over black and get that Tron look, and be gentle with it. You don't want to splash it on there. This is not a once and done quick thing. This is a take your time, go on each level, ask yourself the question, what more can I do? And just keep doing more and more and more. It's hard to outdo it. It's hard to overdo it when it comes to edge highlighting. All right, so time for some metal color, and I do love Vallejo metal color. This is gold. You can add some gold pigment to it and a little bit of copper if you wanted to get a red rich gold, but I have this very cold gold right here, and the reason why I love Vallejo metal color is that the ground up pigment of metal flakes in there are absolutely amazing because they're so finely ground. You don't really notice big flakes. Now some metallic paints you can notice big old flakes in there, and it just does not look to scale at all. It looks like a semi-metallic paint job instead of it being or glitter flakes. instead of it being like a true gold. So this is why I like Vallejo metal color, because it just does appear like metal, and that's pretty amazing. Now there are some Motlov chrome accents that actually see like metal too. There are these pens that are absolutely fantastic. I have yet to play with them, but I am going to get some Molotov, or something it's called like that, but it's like liquid chrome. Oh my gosh, absolutely outstanding. So yeah, I've seen the results on those things. It'll look like a mirror. All right, so time for the decal, which means that we're getting closer to the end of it. I put a couple of decals on there, and it's very simple. I'll show you how I slide them off. What I do is I take some tweezers. I have some angled tweezers, but you can use regular tweezers, and then I just tease it off with my brush, just so. Now you can use Microsol and Microset in order to do this, but I only use them for weird positionings. In other words, like if I have to conform to an odd shape, then I'll be able to do it. If I see that it's not behaving well and it's just not laying flat, that's when I use it. And then once you do that, you paint some ultra matte varnish. And I like to use AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish, and it really just does wonders in tying it down, and it'll take away the gloss from the actual decals. So yeah, pretty awesome stuff. Absolutely. And I guess it's time for the pictures. Alrighty, let's get back. If you haven't done so, please consider subscribing to the channel so you can see more content come up, more Tau content, more Rain in Hell content, and all kinds of shenanigans that I get into, possibly some D&D figure content. As I share this wonderful hobby that I have with you, I try to do an upload every single week, but I am a teacher, so there might be some weeks that might have some interruptions. I will do my best, though, to get it to you. I am loyal to you guys, just like you are loyal when you watch my videos. There's a couple of things you can do to help out the channel. If you would like, join the Facebook group at the Miniatures Paintbrush Legion. I do have an Instagram page, although I am not very good, I have to be honest, at keeping that up. I try. I'm an old fogey. I'm not quite a boomer, but I'm a Generation Xer. So it just takes me a bit. And then I have a Patreon page. I do have, and I'd like to thank Emily Yasesko and Mike McBroom for supporting the Miniatures Paintbrush, and I do appreciate you guys. You guys are absolutely amazing. You come through every single month with your donation, and I am humbled by all that you do for the channel, and it helps me pay for the Adobe suite where I record all this stuff and edit all my videos, and Photoshop and all that other good stuff that I have to pay every year. So thank you so much for doing that, and keeping the Miniatures Paintbrush going here. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. If you'd like a shout out, please consider joining the Patreon page. Now, if you don't do that, that's okay too. Sharing this video with others is the absolute kindest thing you could possibly do. It helps grow the channel. It helps other people find us. And yeah, I would love to grow the channel and make this a bigger and larger community where we can share our ideas and thoughts. I do have live shows as well, joined by my buddy Shameless Soul, who comes on, great guy, to do live shows and painting tutorials and playing with paint and all kinds of shenanigans that we get into over here. Well, that being said, I think it's time for me to call it. If you like this video, consider like, sharing, and subscribing, and we'll catch you next time on the Miniatures Paintbrush.